If you've written the Royal Neighbors final expense product, you may not even realize that they do have a secondary product which happens to be one of the strongest regular whole life policies in the entire industry. And guys, this thing will insure people with a face amount up to $5 million. Today I'm going to do a review of what I consider their two main products, the Jet Whole Life and the Royal Neighbors of America final expense policies. And yes, a thumbs up right now would be great, and we do suggest subscribing with the notifications turned on as we put out new senior insurance sales training and life insurance agent videos every week. Let's start with the final expense product, and if you'd like a copy of our Overcoming Objections super file, in this thing it has scripts on overcoming objections while calling to set appointments, door knocking leads, and even when you go to close the sale and the client gives you some nonsense. Just stick around until the end of the video. I'll show you how to get this for yourself. For the final expense product, the face amount only goes down to $7,000, which is kind of strange, and it maxes out at $30,000. They'll insure folks between the ages of 50 and 80 years old, kind of standard, and you have a choice of setting up a paper application with a phone interview or doing their electronic application, which I love. The e-app lets you know if the client can apply for standard rates before you've put in the payment information. So it lets you know before you go through the whole process of filling everything out, whether you should even go further or not. For telesales, they do a true telephone application. And this means you prep the client for a phone call. You get the RNA tele-application agent on the phone for the three-way call, and they're going to ask the client all the questions, including the beneficiary stuff and even the payment information. Look, there's nothing to input into an application or anything to send to the carrier on your end at all, which means the entire application is done 100% over the telephone. The graded death benefit is only available in Florida, North Dakota, and Connecticut. However, I find it to be, a bit overpriced for the client, and really, to me, if you need to go graded, you're probably better off sending the application to another insurance carrier. The graded death benefit is just not competitive. And look, I don't think it was ever designed to be either. I mean, just think about it. If Royal Neighbors really wanted you to write it today, especially with the virus and the stuff that's going on, they'd probably have it available in like a bunch of states, not just 3. Royal Neighbors final expense product does have some really awesome niches, and I would definitely want to write this product over the phone. Probably want to lead with it if I were a telesales agent, just because of the simplicity of the telephone application process. They don't ask about height and weight. There's no build chart. They don't care if the client suffers from psychotic disorders like psychosis, delusion disorder, that's a thing, schizophrenia, or any any different level of depression. They don't ask about it at all. It's all good. Royal Neighbors of America doesn't care about diabetic neuropathy, and since they don't ask about insulin use either, this makes the Royal Neighbors final expense product perfect for your typical insulin diabetic. Now, they do true Social Security billing, which I'll come back to and explain this in a minute. And they also do blood thinner maintenance, which is a really very, very important niche. And I'm going to have to come back and explain how this works too. But first, let's talk about their super niche. With the information I've given you so far, you could give a client first day coverage who happens to weigh like 500 pounds, is on a lot of insulin, like whatever, it doesn't matter, and has diabetic neuropathy, basically a decline for most companies. Pretty cool, huh? So let's talk about blood thinner maintenance. Now, let's say you have a client who had a heart attack or maybe a stroke. Now, the client is taking a blood thinner as a preventative medication, and as long as they keep taking the blood thinner, like warfarin, Coumadin, or Plavix are the 3 main ones we see, and it could be some others, then this is considered maintenance. Now, what's the catch? The catch is that the underlying event, like the stroke or the heart attack, has to have happened over 2 years ago. So just to be clear, as long as the incident happened over 2 years ago and the client is still taking the blood thinner, they can answer no to the question that asks if they have been treated for a heart attack or stroke, etc. in the past 12 months. It's not considered treatment, it's considered maintenance. I mentioned true Social Security billing a minute ago, and what this means is that Royal Neighbors will draft the monthly payment on the exact day that the client gets their Social Security benefits deposited into their bank account. If they're supposed to get the money on the 3rd of the month, and the 3rd happens to fall on a Sunday, did you know that the money is deposited into their bank account on the previous business day before the weekend? Yes, in this case, the client will get their money on Friday, and what true Social Security billing means, this is important, is that Royal Neighbors will draft that payment on that Friday before the client can take all the money out of their checking account. And what that means for you is the low-income clients will actually stay on the books longer, and you, the agent, will have a much higher persistence with Royal Neighbors clients than you will have with most final expense companies. Some of the negatives about this product is that they will only insure people who have a checking or savings account. No debit, no direct express cards, they don't want to have nothing to do with that. And the fact that the face amount can only go down to $7,000 is kind of silly to me. You know, I would really like this product better if it insured people who are like at least, I want to say 45 and older, or maybe even 40 years and older, like some of the carriers do. As far as negatives go, I really don't have anything bad to say. I mean, they've got themselves a pretty darn killer product, and that's why a lot of agents and insurance agencies like to lead with them and have, you know, their agents write them first. You know, they want their agents to use them as a main product for all of the above. Let's dig into that Jet Whole Life product. Now, this thing can insure folks between the age of 0 and 80 years old. And the face amount starting as low, the minimum is $25,000, and it can insure, as I mentioned before, up to $5 million. And the underwriting goes from simplified for certain ages and face amounts to being fully underwritten for mainly the older ages and or higher face amounts. Let's take a look at this chart and allow me to show you the sweet spots. If your client is a newborn, or maybe is as old as 17 years old, you can write them for a $10,000 to $49,999 face amount policy with the simplified underwriting. And that means all they do is a prescription background check along with like a driver's license check. Yeah, even they do check the driver's license on the kids. And they do the MIB, Medical Information Database lookup. If your client is 18 to 50 years old, you can insure them for $25,000 to up to $500,000 with the same simplified underwriting. And if your client is 51 to 60, the simplified underwriting is for face amounts of $25,000 to $250,000. Now, check this out. If the client does happen to fall outside of those little niches and you have to go with the full underwriting, which means in most cases a paramedic visit, pulling medical records, testing of blood and urine, then they could be approved for super preferred rates. So let's say you have a 75-year-old who is super healthy for their age, you know, one of a kind. We get some of those every now and then. And they want to leave the family like $5 million. That guy, he or she can do that. And with those super preferred rates too. I love the fact that the Royal Neighbors customer service people are really quick to answer the phone. And if you need an underwriting assessment, which anytime you go to use that Jet Whole Life product, I would highly recommend you call them for that. You can easily get an underwriter on the phone who can point you in the right direction. For more information on selling final expense and or Medicare Advantage, learning how to master the senior market as a totally independent insurance agent, just email me at doug@ufesonline.com. Remember, when you put the needs of your clients first, everything else will usually fall right into place. Now, get on out there and do something good for someone today. Happy hunting.